causing heavy traffic in the eastbound lane of Commonwealth Avenue and Quezon Avenue.
Davao City mayoral aspirant Rui Lopez vows to continue the legacy of his father. Lopez also says he's ready to face the president's son, Bastet Duterte, in the local elections. But he has one piece of advice for the head of the Duterte family.
Mr. President, time for you to retire. Naawa naman na ako sa iyo.
Former cabinet officials of the current administration are seeking elective positions in the Senate. How will they fare as lawmakers? We discuss in this episode of The Chiefs. Welcome to this midweek edition of The Chiefs. I'm Ed Lingao. Also with us, Anamari Pamintuan of the Philippine Star from the port area in Manila, and Lucy Cruz Valdez, the head of News 5 from Quezon City. Ladies, happy midweek.
Happy Wednesday.
Happy midweek.
Okay,
Yes.
what's your big story today? Ami, what's your banner for tomorrow?
Well, COVID muna tayo at mukhang matutuloy nga yung Merry Christmas natin, ano? 300
Yeah,
na
sa
lang.
300 pa rin. Yeah.
Saka yung mga ospital, wala na sila mga COVID cases.
So matutuloy na video
Cities,
mo.
talagang
ganun, no?
zero na. Kaya matuloy. At least may good news tayo.
Yeah.
Pero
Well,
yung
for Singapore.
France, biglang nag-red list. Oo nga.
Yeah.
Nilagay sa red list.
But-
So, syempre, yung mga Pinoy na sana, magbabakasyon dito. 14 days na naman sila.
Yeah.
Okay.
But notably, yung mga infected ng Omicron variant in Europe, they're all mild. So
Yes.
mukhang there is some reason to hope na it may be more
Yeah.
infectious, pero baka nga naman hindi siya talaga ganun ka
Virulent or
serious or
ano, no?
serious
Yes.
when it comes to symptoms. So something to
Right.
look forward to. Anyway, we move over to politics. We begin tonight with former Agriculture Secretary and former Mindanao Development Authority head, and I may as well say former journalist. If I remember correctly, he was with the Bulletin before he joined the radio broadcast. Emmanuel
Navarro.
Manny Piñol, who now seeks a Senate seat under the National People's Coalition. Good evening, sir. Magandang gabi at salamat sa inyong pagdalo.
Good
Ed,
evening po,
magandang gabi sa'yo.
sir.
Good evening, Lucy, Ami, Ed, Robbie, how are you?
Sir, anong bentahe ninyo sa mga botante? Ba't iboboto ng mga botante si Ginoong Manny Piñol?
Well, actually, yung aking advocacy, Ed, has always been agriculture. And let's say I would describe myself as a reluctant candidate, actually. I did not have any intention of running in the elections. My term as chairman of the Mindanao Development Authority would have allowed me to serve government until August 5, 2025. Kanya lang, nung makita ko na sa listahan ng mga kandidato ngayon, wala akong pangalang nakita na maaring makaunawa ng problema ng agriculture, especially food security and food sufficiency. I decided to step forward and volunteer. So I'm actually volunteering to serve the country in amending, improving our legislation and policies on agriculture and fisheries. And I believe I could help with my vast experience in agriculture and my deep knowledge of the sector.
Of course,
Pero
talking
sir,
Sige, go ahead, Lucy.
tandang-tanda namin na kayo po ay naging Secretary of Agriculture at nung kayo po ay nakaupo bilang kalihim, ay nagkaroon ng matinding rice shortage at napakamahal na bentang bigas at nauwi pa nga sa rice tariffication na batas.
Lucy,
Yun na nga, ano po ba ang assessment ninyo ngayon nitong batas na ito?
Lucy, alam mo, medyo mali yung background na yan. Let me just explain this very clearly. There was no rice shortage. There was an increase in rice prices, mainly because the supply was manipulated by the traders and the middlemen. Why do I say that there was no rice shortage? Look, in 2016, ang harvest ng Pilipinas was 17.6 million metric tons lamang. Walang rice shortage ng 2017. Noong 2017, first full year ng Duterte administration, we recorded our highest harvest in history, 19.28 million metric tons. Bakit nagkaroon ng problema sa bigas? And by the way, let me clarify. During the so-called rice crisis, ang NFA was not under DA. I was not even part of the NFA Council. Ang nangyari kasi, every lean month, lean period, nag-i-import ang NFA as buffer stock. Preparation for June, July, August, yun yung mga buwan na yun. As early as the last few months of 2017, humihingi na ang NFA sa NFA Council na payagan silang mag-import ng buffer stock nila for 2018. Ang problema at that time, the NFA Council was still under Secretary June Vasco, Secretary Dominguez, and so on and so forth. No? Hindi nila panayagan yung NFA na mag-import. So pagdating ng lean months, nawala yung 27 peso na bigas ng NFA sa palengke. And when the traders saw that, they manipulated the prices to the point that the prices went up to as high as 80 pesos. Now, why am I saying that there was no rice shortage? Because if you had the money, you could buy. Umabot nga lang ng 70 yung presyo na bigas. And then, right after that, nung pumutok yun, inilipat sa DA under me ang NFA. And I became the council chairman. Right away, I ordered the importation para sa buffer stock. Right away, we were able to stabilize the prices. But looking back, Lucci, I believe that action by the NFA Council, which was dominated by economic managers, was actually made deliberately to justify the imposition of the Rice Tariffication Law.
Sir,
Where was
that's
the pressure
interesting. Deliberately.
coming from? Why did they want to do that? Was it the WTO? Was it vested interest?
Matagal na, Lucci, actually, no? Matagal na yung pressure na yan by our international lenders, World Bank, ADB. They have long wanted the Philippines to open up its market to imported rice. We agreed to that because admittedly, talagang kulang pa naman yung ating production ng bigas. And we had a commitment sa World Trade Organization na papasukin yung imported na bigas. The only difference was that yung ginawa ng Congress na version ng Rice Tariffication Law was not implemented. It was actually superseded by the Senate version of the RTL, which allowed unimpeded importation and which actually, how would you call this? Tinanggalan nila ng powers yung NFA.
Wala ng NFA, yes, that's right.
Wala nang regulatory powers. So they gave it all to the private sector, thinking that by flooding the market with imported rice, the prices would go down. Ano ang commitment ng economic managers when they convinced the president to sign the Rice Tariffication Bill? Sabi nila, and I was there because I was part of the panel that actually talked with the farmers in Malacanang, last ditch effort ng mga farmers to convince the president to defer the signing of the RTL. Sabi ng mga economic managers, and I referred to Secretary Carlos Dominguez, it's a no-brainer, 105 million consumers against 5 million farmers. Yun ang premise. Number two, sabi nila, kapag pinarmahan yung RTL, bababa ng 7 pesos yung presyo na bigas sa palengke. Number three, kapag pinarmahan yung RTL, magkakaroon ng 10 billion na tariff collection every year, which would be channeled to the rice sector and boost the farmers' productivity. Both did not happen, Lucci, because unfortunately, while these are bright people, they did not understand the realities on the ground. The reality on the ground is that the rice industry in the country has and had always been dominated by big businessmen who control the supply, who control the prices.
Traders.
Unthinkable yung ginawa na yun na hayaan mo yung pinaka-importanting staple food ng mga Pilipino sa kamay ng private sector. Even France doesn't do that. They control the price of bread in France because that's the staple food of the French. Sa atin dito, kanin na nga lang yung kinakain ng mga Pilipino araw-araw. Binitawan pa natin at pinabayaan natin yung private traders and private businessmen to control the industry, which was a very, very huge mistake.
So, Mr. Piñol, kung mananalo kayo, by way of legislation,
I think
Ano yung
we're
balak niyong
for the aircraft.
Sorry, Ami. Medyo napasabay doon sa announcement ng airline.
Nasa airport kasi.
Akala,
Nasa
may
airport
halaman
kasi,
sa likod ninyo. Akala ko.
Hindi pa naman ako panis.
Akala ko
Please
akala ko
repeat
nasa
the
North
question,
Cotabato
Ami. I'm
kayo.
sorry.
Kung by way of legislation, kung mananalo kayo, anong balak niyong amendahan? Kasi matagal nang pinag-uusapan yung price and supply manipulation sa rice industry eh.
Actually, wala namang problem.
Apart from, saka dun sa Rice Tariffication Law, balak niyo ba completely repeal o ia-amendahan lang?
Actually, Ami, as I've said earlier, dalawang version yung RTL. Eh. Kasi talaga namang papapasukin talaga natin, ililift talaga natin yung quantitative restrictions. Because dumating na yung punto na,
Yes.
of course, no, kumita tayo sa WTO. Pero ang problema doon, binuksan nila. Ibig sabihin, lahat ng safety nets, lahat ng safeguards, tinanggal. And they allowed the unimpeded importation of rice, which was wrong. Ang ating punto is that let's amend the law. Number one, let's look at the tariff schedule. Kasi ang nangyayari, kaya hindi bumaba yung presyo ng bigas sa palengke, ang ini-import ng mga traders, yung premium rice, yung jasmine ng Thailand, yung long range ng Vietnam, basmati, which are actually very expensive varieties. So instead of bringing down the price of rice on the market, tumaas. At nawala yung 27 pesos na bigas ng NFA. Kasi ang NFA ngayon, buffer stocking agency na lang. Now, what do we intend to do? We will review the original version of the RTL, the Congress version. And let's go back to that. We will still fulfill our commitments with the WTO. We will bring down the price of rice on the market, allow consumers to have access to rice at 30, 32 pesos. And of course, make sure that our local farmers are not injured by the unimpeded importation of rice. Ganon na naman kasimple yun. Hindi naman natin tatanggalin lahat yan. Babaguhin lang yung batas so that lahat ng mga problema na yun ay ma-address natin.
Pero sir, what kind of regulation do you want to put in terms of amending the RTL? In other words, kasi what you're saying is that yes, we are still committed to WTO, but we want to put in place some sort of regulation pa rin. What kind of regulation po?
Actually, ganito yan eh. Itong version na ito ng Senate sa RTL, Ed, allows the President to adjust the tariff schedule, no? Yung tariff rates. Na kung halimbawa masagana yung ating ani, pwede niyang itaas yung tariff rates para hindi makapasok yung imported na bigas. Ang problema dyan, doon sa batas na ginawa nila, they only allow the President to act on this when Congress is not in session.
Okay.
And more often than not, that's a very small window for the President. At nangyayari yun, hindi during the harvest season, kundi during the 5 months. So yan ang naging problema natin na while the President is empowered to adjust the tariff rates, tinalian nila ang kamay ng Presidente na hindi maka-akto at the right time.
Ano pa?
Okay.
Kasi
Sir,
nakaset na yun eh, no? At 35%, basta yun na yung rate, right? At basta kahit kailan, wala nang quota system. Tsaka yung isang question doon, sir, ibabalik nyo ba yung NFA control? I mean, mababalik pa ba yun? Is that
Hindi naman siguro control, Lucci, but regulatory powers, supervisory powers. Because right now, the NFA cannot even check the warehouses if the traders are holding the rice or if they are manipulating the rice supply or the prices. Wala nang power yung gobyerno.
Walang enforcement authority.
Wala na. Pati yung pagbebenta ng bigas sa palengke na nung nalipat sa akin for a few months yung NFA, inayos namin, talagang merong distinct and very clear classification. Ito regular milled, ito well milled, ito premium. Huwag niyong baguhin yan. Ganyan ang classification natin. Ngayon kung ano-ano nakikita mo, may sinandoming, may kung ano-anong pangalan. Which actually is misleading the consumers. No? So ang NFA is critical because if we want to adjust the tariff rates, tatlong klaseng bigas kasi. 25% broken, 15% broken, saka premium. Yung ini-import ng mga traders ngayon, saka mga importers, yung premium. Kasi malaking tubo nila. At dahil malaking tubo nila, ayaw na nilang bumili sa local farmers because Magpapatuyo pa sila, gigiling pa sila, maraming trabaho. Whereas kung mag-import lang sila, tatawag lang sa Vietnam o Thailand, darating naka-container, magandang sako, diretso sa probinsya, so wala nang trabaho. And they earn a lot. No? So, ang nangyari, yung local na production ngayon, hindi na binibili ng mga provincial traders kasi nakikipag-compete na sila sa mga imported rice. Now, ang mangyayari dyan, kailangan lang nating ibalik yung regulatory powers ng NFA kasi kapag kinontrol natin yung classification ng bigas, kung gusto na talaga natin bumaba yung presyo ng bigas sa palengke, dapat yung 25% broken at saka 15% broken ang ating i-import. Pero sino ang eksperto sa BPI o sa customs na maghihimay ng butil ng bigas ang sabihin nga ito 25% broken, ito 15% broken? Only NFA can do that. So we have to bring back the NFA to regulate the industry, not necessarily control.
Sir, I'd
Mr.
like to...
Piñol, outside rice, kasi ang agriculture sector this year nag-shrink 2.6% year-on-year, no? Lahat-lahat na crops, livestock, fisheries. Are you also planning to introduce legislation na addressing the problems of the agriculture sector in general?
Yes, Ami. In fact, medyo magyayabang na ako ng konti, no? Yung dalawang full 2 years na akong Secretary of Agriculture, 2017, 3.9% positive growth ng agriculture, the highest in so many years. After 1 year, 2018, although tinamaan tayo ng bagyo, positive 1% pa rin. Ngayon na nag-negative yan. Hindi ko sinasabing dahil sa akin. No? It's a confluence of factors actually. Paring may bagyo, whatever. No? But that is the number on record. No? Now, meron kasi tayong malaking problema sa ating agriculture, Ami. And that is the fact that our agricultural programs are always tied with the political terms of our leaders. 6 na taon ng presidente, gusto na Secretary of Agriculture, paligayahin yung presidente. So he comes up with programs that would yield fruits within the 6-year term of the president. And pagkatapos ng bagong presidente, babaguhin na naman. We really have to institutionalize our agriculture programs. And it could only be done through the implementation of programs that are legislated. Like say for example, etong pagtatapos ng rural roads and bridges. Matagal na yan eh. Painot-inot, pa konti-konti, no? Piecemeal kumbaga. Dapat gumawa tayo ng batas na within the next 6 years, automatic appropriation, tapusin yung lahat ng rural roads and bridges so that whatever happens, sino man maging presidenteng bago, hindi na babagong program yan. Second, yung ating marketing system has got to be improved. You know, ito ang pinaka-antiquated na marketing system na nakita ko. Sa Amerika, yung farmer diretsong pumupunta sa kanyang binabentahan na supermarket, dala yung kanyang produkto. Sa atin dito, yung farmer sa barangay pa lang, ang unang bibili ng produkto niya, yung nag-finance ng kanyang production. At babaan yung presyo kasi kikita siya. From that trader, it goes to the trader in the munisipyo. It goes to another trader. Bago dumating sa palengke, abay tenfold na ang presyo. And I conducted a personal review of this system actually, Ami. I went to Baguio this October after filing. I talked to the carrots farmers of Benguet. Ang bilis sa kanila, 25, 30. Ibababa sa Baptisi, yun yung Benguet Agri-Pinoy Trading Center, at sasaluhin ng isang trader. Lilinisan ng konti, tatanggalin yung putik, ilalagay sa supot, tutubo siya ng 10 hanggang 15 pesos. Ililipat sa truck, another trader, tutubuan na naman. Pagbagsak sa balintawak, another trader, tutubuan na naman. Pagdala sa ibang palengke, tutubuan. Kaya yung 25 na carrots ng Benguet, umaabot ng hanggang 160, 180 pagdating sa kusina ng Pilipinong pamilya. And this is something that we should correct. At ang proposal ko dyan, ibalik natin yung operation ng Food Terminal Incorporated para direktang makukuha yung mga produkto ng magsasaka mula sa bukid, sa Regional Food Consolidation Center, and then open up farmers and fishermen stores or outlets in Metro Manila, in the big cities, so that yung cost of transport mababawasan. Hindi kasi natin pwedeng ikumpara ang Pilipinas sa Vietnam sa Thailand. No, sinasabi na lang, let our farmers be competitive. We cannot, because we are geographically a fragmented country. We have 7,000 highlands. Magdala ka lang ng saging from Mindanao to Manila, it's so expensive na mas mahal pa actually yung transport cost kaysa magdala ka ng Cavendish banana from Davao to Japan. So ganun kahirap. So kailangan talagang pakialaman ng gobyerno ito at kailangan talagang ang gobyerno should be involved in the repositioning of food supplies. I believe that we don't lack food in this country. Our problem is the repositioning of food from one region to another. Kamatis ng mga Viskaya, for example. Minsan tinatapon na lang ng mga farmers. Kailangan yun sa ibang region pero hindi pa dala ni farmer kasi magkano na naman kamatis? 10 piso. Mamamasahe ka ng 100, pwede mo bang ibenta ng 100 yan? So ganun ka-practical sana ang ating approach sa programang ito o sa problemang ito. And I believe that it could be done through legislation.
Sir, these are very good middle to long-term initiatives. Pero something very, very short-term nga, something as simple as controlling or regulating manipulation by middlemen and traders, it's been a constant refrain. In all the previous rice crises that we've had, we've always heard na hindi naman problema ang supply, hindi naman nag-fail yung harvest. Parating ang problema, tinataas ng mga trader at middlemen yung presyo, minamanipula nila at wala tayong magawa. And I remember the president in one zona, sabi pa nga niya, he's ordering the intelligence agencies to go after these rice traders. My question is, what has happened to that? Has that ever been resolved? Have we ever cracked down really on the manipulators and the hoarders? And have they really felt the brunt of the law?
For as long as we have this antiquated marketing system, magpapatuloy yan. No amount of police action or even action by agencies to run after traders will be successful. Kasi negosyo yan eh. Kaya sabi ko nga kanina, kailangan talaga makialam ang gobyerno sa distribution system ng pagkain. The procurement and distribution system, especially yung mga basic food needs. Like karne ng baboy, manok, gulay, prutas, bigas, for example. And kailangan talaga natin baguhin yung ating marketing system. And it could only be done by instituting reforms sa marketing system ng Pilipinas. It has got to be changed. It has got to be improved.
O politika naman tayo, sir. Bakit ba kayo nasali dyan bakit kayo sa partido or sa tandem ni Senator Ping at ni Senate President Soto?
Well, number one, actually 10 days before the filing na lang ako nag-decide, Lucy, na tumakbo. Nung makita ko nga na walang pwedeng mag-champion ng agriculture, I decided to give up my post as Minda chairman and file my certificate of candidacy. Why Ping?
Pero bakit sila?
Why
Yes.
Tito?
Yes.
Alam niyo naman, kaibigan kong personal si Pangulong Duterte, kumpare ko. At although meron kaming mga hindi pagkakasundo sa mga polisiya tulad ng Rice Tariffication Law na open kung binabanatan at iba pang polisiya tulad ng massive importation ng baboy at saka manok, no? Against ako sa policy na yan, how would I look like if I joined the administration party in the same stage and attack the very policies that they are championing? Di ba? Napakasiwa nun. Why Ping? Because among the candidates early on, si Ping ang nakita ko na hindi bumabanat ng personal kay Pangulong Duterte. And that was very important to me. Kasi I didn't want to join a group na personal na inaatake yung kaibigan ko na naglagay sa akin sa Agriculture Department at sa Minda na kung hindi sa kanya, hindi naman ako nakilala ng mga Pilipino or hindi ko na ipalabas at the national level yung aking mga advocacies. So, simpleng tao lang ako, Lucy. No? I grew up in the farm. And yung aking personal na mga relasyon kay Pangulong Duterte, inaalagaan ko. Although hindi kami nagkakasundo sa ibang mga issues and policies, I consider him as a very good friend, a very dear friend. Nag-iisang ninong ng aking bunsong anak.
Mr. Piñol, nabanggit na nga ni Ed na you're also a former journalist. Meron di ba kayong balak na i-introduce related to mass media, for example?
Well, marami. Tingnan natin kung anong issues ang i-raise ng ating fraternity and sorority, yung ating journalistic fraternity and sorority. If there are issues, I could easily understand it because galing ako dyan and madali akong lapitan at madali nating mapag-usapan yung mga issues na i-raise ng ating mga kapatid.
So, na-curious ako na friend mo si President Duterte, but at the same time, ayaw mong sumama dahil aatake ka. So is that what we expect from you?
No, actually, hindi naman personal na atake, Lucy, no. Kasi halimbawa, pinupuna ko yung Rice Tariffication Law, which I believe was passed through the insistence of the economic managers who misled the president actually on the numbers, no. Pwede ba akong sumama sa grupo niyon na sila sinasabi nilang the greatest legislation daw ng administration na ito ay yung Rice Tariffication Law. At sinasabi ko, kausapin yung mga magsasaka at baka paluin kayo ng mga magsasaka ng yantok sa ulo. At naghihirap sila ngayon, no. So I cannot reconcile that, no. Yung aking opposition sa Rice Tariffication Law, because I talk to the people on the ground, I go to the market, and they cannot actually deceive, no, me and the people who really know the numbers.
Okay.
Complicated ba?
Hindi. Interesting naman.
Parang love life yan, it's complicated.
Parang relationship sa Facebook, di ba? Sir, I do remember, before we let you go, kasi I'd also like to bring in another topic. What about the peace initiatives in Mindanao? Do you think we're headed in the right direction? For example, with the Moro Islamic Liberation Front.
Oh,
and
yes.
the
Ito
other
naman, this I can tell you. The greatest legacy of President Rodrigo Roa Duterte, whatever you say of him, no, is peace in Mindanao. At ako ang buhay na testigo dyan, sapagkat nung araw, ako ang #1 na target ng MILF. You remember that, no?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Ako
sir.
yung nag-file ng suit sa Supreme Court questioning that MOA AD.
The MOA AD in 2008.
Which was supposed to have been signed by the MILF and President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo. And actually, I was the #1 enemy of the MILF. But I have to admit that the President actually succeeded in establishing peace in Mindanao. At ngayon nakakaikot ako. Nakakapasok ako sa kampo ng MILF. I talk to them. We work together. And I have always said this. Kung merong pinakamagandang ginawa ang Pangulong Duterte sa Pilipinas, that is the peace agreement in Mindanao. And for that, I would give him credit for really handling it. Kasi unlike before, Ed, alam mo naman yan, pareho tayong journalist. Nung araw, may peace panel pa eh. Umaabot pa sila sa Libya, sa kung saan-saan, Malaysia, Indonesia, para makipag-usap. Yung ginawa ni Pangulong Duterte, iba, he called Murad, and I saw it. No, I saw it with my own 2 eyes sa Davao. Mag-uusap sila, silang dalawa lang. And I would assume that in those conversations, sinasabi niya kay Kagi Murad siguro, ito lang kaya ko ibigay sa'yo. Take it or leave it. And through that personal handling of the age-old problem of conflict in Mindanao, the president was able to succeed in forging that peace agreement with the Moro Islamic Liberation Front. And that's actually something that he could call his legacy.
But how do you see the future of BARM? I understand the BTA has been extended, pero at the same time kasi yung decommissioning ng troops ng MLF medyo bumabagal. I suppose nahihirapan ng konti sa transition.
Well, these are first birth pains. You have to understand these people are former rebels. You cannot expect them to become excellent government executives overnight. You have to give them a leeway. You have to give them room. And I'm actually committed to support the MILF and the BARM in their efforts to build a better region. And I'm proud to tell you that itong grupo ngayon na nagpapatakbo sa Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao are really sincere in what they would like to do for their people. In fact, yun ang challenge ko kay Kagi Murad nung mapirmahan yung BOL. Nakita kami sa Malacanang. I told him, congratulations. The easy part of your revolution has ended. Now you start with the difficult part, and that is delivering your promises to the people who fought for you and who fought with you, and whose children died because of that revolution.
Yeah, governance is really the harder part. Maraming salamat. Former Secretary Manny Piñol, tumatakbo po sa pagka-senador. Maraming salamat, sir, for joining us tonight.
Salamat din sa inyo. Thank you. Thank you, Ami.
Yes, sir. We'll just go into break, so please stay with us. Welcome back to the Chiefs here on One News. And now joining us is another senatorial candidate, former Chief Presidential Legal Counsel, Attorney Salvador Panelo. Sir, magandang gabi and thank you for joining us.
Maghahanap daw muna, Ed, ng tahimik na lugar dahil medyo maingay where he is. Sa Marawi pala siya eh. Yeah.
Nasaan siya?
So,
Nasa bahay ba siya?
yeah. No, we see him. Oh, he's just looking for a spot that's quiet. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, talking about
Sir,
Manny Piñol
pwede
kanina.
na yan.
Yun na ba?
Oh, tahimik naman eh.
Di ba,
Pumasok na ako sa kwarto ko.
Eto na. Pwede na,
Kasi
sir.
kasi-check-in lang namin eh.
asan kayo, sir?
Okay.
Where are you now?
Nasa Pagadian, Lanao del
Pagadian?
Norte.
Oh, ano sir? Kampanya?
How's that?
Kampanya na, sir? Are you
Kampanya
campaigning?
ba yan?
Are you there for campaign? or-
I'm listening to you. Sandali.
Okay. So, abangan natin.
Okay,
Marami
sige,
tayong
sige.
pwedeng itanong kay Secretary Panelo.
Nag-aayos pa ata si Secretary Panelo. Anyway, we
Oo,
were talking
nasa
earlier
inner
with
circle eh.
we were talking earlier.
Ayan. Okay na. Sige, sir. We'll put you on. Game. Ayan na.
Sir, yun. Sir, magandang gabi and thank you for joining us.
Good evening, Sec.
Thank you for the
Yes, sir.
opportunity, for the invite.
Yes, sir.
Yung ano niya.
Yes, sir. Sir, certainly, we of course, we want to talk about your platform in your run for the Senate. Pero sir, allow us first to address the big elephant in the room with regard to the standard bearer of your party. We understand, si Senator Bongo, nag-announce na nung isang linggo pa na hindi na siya tutuloy. Pero maraming tatanong kung bakit po hindi pa siya nag-formal withdrawal. What's happening with the party? What's the plan of the party?
Well, hindi yata makapag-file ng withdrawal sa COC simply because hindi siya makapasok ng Comelec. Nandun yung mga supporters niya. Pinipigilan siya. Yan ang pagkakalam ko. In regard to your question, kung ano gagawin ng partido, actually, I'm not privy to what the party is going to do with that. But I talked with the president the other night, last night. Sabi niya sa akin sabihin lang sa mga nagtatanong na maghintay lang because meron yata siyang bagong kandidato.
May bagong, sir, you mean mag-endorse siya ng ibang kandidato?
Si President Duterte has another candidate na. Kasi yun ang iniintay lahat ng mga tao ngayon eh. Na yun ang best proof na talaga mag-withdraw na si Senator Bongo kapag may in-endorse na si President Duterte. So you're telling us now na naghahanda na si President Duterte to name a new his preferred successor.
Well, yun ang sinabi ni Presidente na meron siyang i-endorse. Para sinabi, maghintay lang. Yun ang sabi.
Wala pong hint kasi ang situation ngayon
Hindi na sila kasi kung anong plano niya. But definitely meron siyang kandidato siguro nasa isip.
Pero sir, ilan na naman sila kasi hindi na pwedeng, wala nang bagong pwedeng mag-file ng COC. So what you have is what you will get.
Alam mo, pinag-aralan ko yan. Pwede sila mag-substitution. Kasi while the deadline is already off,
yes, sir.
but that can be extended. Kasi yung fixing of the filing of substitution, the deadline, sabi ng Supreme Court, yung Comelec as the authority,
Yes, sir.
only because of the printing.
Yes, sir.
Kasi nga naman, pag mag-withdraw ka na nagkaroon na ng printing, baka may problema. So the Comelec can move that. Kasi parang unfair naman sa isang party if you deprive it with representation.
Yes, sir. Pero sir, yun nga, the COMELEC does have the authority to move the deadlines. Pero what basis do you have to be confident that they will move the deadline just for PDP Laban? Kasi that's been set already for all the other parties before.
I just said it. I said it would be unfair for a party to be deprived of representation.
Bakit hindi na lang the other option na mag-endorse na lang si Presidente ng ibang candidate belonging to another party. Is that also a possibility?
Doon sa mga kandidato ngayon,
Sa current.
yung major candidate.
Yung mga tumatakbo ngayon,
parang
among
sa
those.
tingin ko, parang wala siya napupusuan yata sa mga nasa mga nakadeklarado ng kandidato.
So you're saying the substitution will also come from the party? Yun ang
The substitute.
Yes, that's what it's saying, in effect.
Yeah. So it's not for someone from another party. Papangalanan ko na kasi dalawa lang naman yung pinagpipilian ng mga tao. Yung spekulasyon, it's either Mayor Isko Moreno or
Isko
Bongbong
Moreno.
Marcos.
Yes.
So hindi pala yun. It will be someone from PDP Laban also?
Walang in-elaborate si Presidente Duterte, but wala rin siyang binanggit na either one of the two you mentioned.
Sir, sorry sir, just to be clear sir, doon sa sinabi po sa inyo ng Pangulo, just to be clear, sa sinabi po sa inyo ng Pangulo, binanggit ba niya kung itong gusto niyang i-endorse na kandidato ay galing sa labas? In other words, bagong kandidato or isa sa mga lumang kandidatong nag-file na? Nabanggit po ba niya?
Wala rin siyang binanggit. Basta sabihin ko daw sa mga nagtatanong sa mga LGU governors, mga officials, na maghintay lang.
Mm-hmm. But from your view,
pero
sir...
saan ang gagaling, sir, nga yung... I mean, I know na pwedeng gawin ng COMELEC yun, no? Pero, anong gagawin niya? I mean, assuming na kayang gawin ng COMELEC yun at gagawin ng COMELEC yun, ano yun? Would that be some pressure on the COMELEC?
Will there be a petition from PDP Laban?
Exerting some sort of pressure so that they will move the substitution date yet again? I mean,
Lucy, when you say a particular office has the authority, then you don't need the pressure to that. If it has the authority, then it has the discretion to do it.
Well, yes, but they had made the schedules very, very clear already. And parang everybody's on that mode, even other candidates, no? So even assuming na pwede nilang gawin yun, hindi rin ba unfair dun sa mga iba na nagbabalak din sanang gumawa ng the same substitution for whatever reason? I mean, di ba, it's like changing the rules of the game again.
Hindi naman. Kasi nga, if it has the authority to fix a deadline, then it has the authority to move it. Now, when you say that it would be unfair if you deprive representation of one party. Right now, Section 77 of the Omnibus Election Code says you can substitute in the event of death or withdrawal.
Yes, sir.
Right.
Involuntary
but it has to be a
substitution.
family member or the same name,
To
right?
that, there should be exactly yung pinag-uusapan natin na may deadline. But again, as the Supreme Court says, kaya you have the discretion to move it.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Panelo, hindi pa nga nare-resolve ng COMELEC yung accreditation problem ng PDP Laban. And I was going to ask you about that actually. Paano kapag ang ni-recognize yung other faction nila, Coco Pimentel, what happens to your candidacy, for example?
Well, di ba, pag yung partido hindi recognized as a party, then you become independent candidates.
Independent.
Sir, I do understand your...
Independent.
Yes, sir. Sir, I do understand your point kanina na the COMELEC does have the authority to move the deadlines because in the original law, yung Omnibus Election Code, mas maluwag pa nga eh. Pero sir, going by your argument, wouldn't it also be unfair to the other parties to give exception to the PDP Laban when the other parties were forced to follow the original deadline set by the COMELEC of November 15?
Bakit naman unfair? Kung meron silang withdrawal, then they can do so. If you move the deadline for substitution necessarily, that will apply to everyone.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
But that's a big if. So what if COMELEC does not actually move the deadline? I mean, what do you think will
What happens next,
uh,
sir? Mhm.
oh, will happen? Who will President Duterte endorse, and what will he do? I mean,
Presidente niya, kung mangyari yung sinasabi mo, then it's on him kung anong magiging desisyon niya.
Yes, sir. Sir, actually, going back to Ami's question, because I think everybody really is curious about about whether the president could still possibly endorse Bongbong Marcos, given that Sara is the running mate, diba? And in the end, blood really is thicker than water. Is that already outside the realm of possibilities that the president could endorse Bongbong Marcos for president? Is that already out of the?
If you're speaking of probabilities, then sky is the limit.
Yes, sir. But I'm talking about probabilities, not possibilities. Probabilities.
Well, everything is probable also, given the situation. Kung wala ka ng ibang kandidato outside of the declared ones, then syempre, you will be forced to choose among those po pwede, or you have the option not to.
Not to.
anong sentiment sa loob ng partido, sir? I mean, you're in the inner circle, no? Or what do people feel now about, I mean, Senator Bongo withdrawing after having prepared for a run quite early, in fact, and after having invested a lot on it, and after having garnered so much support, let's just say, anong sentimiento ng mga taga-PDP laban at pati na sa palasyo, because you're part of that. Maybe you can give us an idea.
Let me correct you there, Lucy. I'm not part of the inner party of the PDP laban. I'm not even an officer of this party. I'm just an ordinary member.
Of the
now,
president.
with respect to the sentiments of the party as a party, I do not know that. But with respect to the sentiments of governors who supported Senator Christopher Bongo in his vice presidential run, as well as the mayors, they're telling me that whoever the president endorses, they will follow.
Sige. Okay, Secretary Panelo, let's shift to Salvador Panelo, the senatorial candidate. Ano po yung main platform ninyo, and what do you intend to do if you are elected? Yung mga immediate on your legislative agenda.
Well, I have several proposed bills in mind. Like, I discovered that while there is free education under the Tertiary Act, and also there is a law making it free services on health, free hospitals, doctors, medicine, as well as lawyers, we have power. But there are so many requirements. You have to be qualified. Like, for instance, you have to take an examination and pass it. And if you pass it, you have to maintain a grade that is imposed by the institution. Also, there is so-called income bracket ceiling. If you go beyond that, then you are not qualified.
Mm-hmm.
I feel that if we follow the Constitution, which mandates under Section 4 of Article 2, saying that the prime task of the government is to serve and to protect the people, then every Filipino, when you're born Filipino, then you should be given this right and privilege to avail of free education, free medicine, doctors and hospitals, as well as lawyers. Those who can afford, you can go to Ateneo, La Salle, USC, and those who can afford medicine, expensive doctors, hospital, you can go to St. Luke's. With respect to legal services, you can go to the Campanilla lawyers. But if you cannot afford it, then the government has the duty to provide. That's one. Another thing, I've been receiving many appeals that the mothers, even unwed mothers who have children, they have difficulty in providing the needs of the families. I feel that there's one special group. After all, the mothers are the ones who train their children to be the future leaders of the land. They invest a lot. And we should give them also some kind of protection. And I would like to introduce a bill in the Senate to give them permanent regular allowance, at least 10,000 a month for all mothers and wed mothers with children. Number three, the tricycle drivers and jeepney drivers who come to me and complain about their situation. They're the so-called informal workers. Isang kahit isang tuka. Pag wala kang pasada, wala ka may uwi sa bahay. Apart from that, magbabayad ka pa ng boundary. So, if that is that provision that says the prime task of the government is to protect and to serve the people, this is one special group that requires protection. So I will introduce a bill in the Senate to direct the government to subsidize all jeepney drivers and tricycle drivers for every liter that they will buy of gasoline and crude oil. Half of that will have to be shouldered by the government para mas marami silang nadadala na pera sa kanilang pamilya. Also, I discovered also, to my surprise, that barangay captains, kagawads, tanods, health officials, as well as SK chairman in the barangay, have no regular salaries. They rely on honorarium allowances, and that depends pa sa IRA or sa whether yung isang unit ay mayaman o hindi. Like in Tondo and Quezon City, ang pinakamalaki nilang, the highest na nakukuha ng mga barangay kapitan is 3,000. But in cities na malaki, like San Fernando, 29,000. Yung Angeles, 32,000. Kawawa naman yung mga majority of them ay walang sweldo. Pag yan ang mga nag-retire after so many years of service, retirement pay yan. Eh sila naman ang mga nasa front lines, kumbaga. The residents in the community do not go to the mayor for their problems immediately. They go to the barangay captains. Sila yung mga una, nahihirapan nga sila. Kaya I feel I should introduce a bill in Congress to provide them a plantilla, regular salaries, in addition to the allowances. Eh kung yung mga sundalo at mga militar, eh meron ng sundo, meron pang sahod. Yung mga health workers natin, meron din. And speaking of that, yung pong mga teachers natin. Teachers, ha? My mother was a teacher. The mother of the president was a teacher. Pero itong mga guro natin, alam niyo, nagpunta sa akin sa opisina, sabi niya sa akin Sir, mag-pulis na lang kami. Mag-military lang kami. Bakit naman? Aba, ang entry level namin, 22,000, 27,000. Samantala ang mga military police, 32,000. Nahalos na doble na ang mga sweldo nila. Ba't naman yung mga teachers natin? Nadadagdagan sila, 500 pesos, 1,000, kumbaga napakaliit. So I feel na doblein din natin. Kung nadoble yung mga sundalo at police, doblein natin ang mga teachers. Meron pa akong naisip naman para sa mga, the senior citizens are complaining. Bakit daw napakaliit naman ng natatanggap nila? Kung maaari naman daw dagdagan. Benefits. Yun namang mga persons with disability, they're also complaining. Sabi na, ba't yung mga senior citizens, meron silang mga benefits, kami wala. Like for instance, kailangan nila ng crutches, kailangan nila ng wheelchair, kailangan nila yung sa tenga nila, mga they're deaf. Kumbaga, kailangan bigyan din sila. Yun naman mga LGBT, they're also complaining. They're being discriminated against. Pag sila daw nag-a-apply, pag nalaman na LGBT sila, wala na. Itsapuera na kagad sila. And if nakapasok sila na-discover na LGBT pala sila, hinahanapan sila ng diferensya. That's supposed to be against the law. You cannot discriminate on the basis of gender, on religion, and political affiliation. Hindi pwede yan. Pero ang problema, ang baba ng penalty. Imprisonment. Taasan kaya natin? Siguro gawin natin 30 years yan. Hanggang life imprisonment. Baka naman sakaling pag yan mataas ang penalty. Yung mga employers, yung mga may-ari ng pabrika, pag nag-hire sila, matatakot na silang mag-discriminate against LGBT. Now, I have special advocacy. As you know, I have a special child,
Yeah.
si Carlo.
Yeah.
And ang dasal namin ni Dr. Panelo noon, maunang mamatay ang aming anak. And you know, I researched on this. I discovered 2 years ago, there was 2.5 million special children all over the country. 2 years ago yon. Baka ngayon, 3 million na yan. And you can just imagine, you multiply that by 2. We have 6 million na parents na ang lahat ng worry nila, pareho namin noon, paano na kung mauna kaming mamatay? Who will take care of the kids? You cannot rely on the siblings because meron din silang mga pamilya. At iba siyempre yung parents. So if it is true that the prime duty of the government is to serve and to protect them, kung yung special yung grupo ng mga drivers, sangkay, sangtupa, lalo na ito. Kasi ito, mga helpless ito. So bigyan natin ito ng mga facilities in America, in Australia, Singapore, in Japan. Meron silang special law for that. Inaalagaan nila mga special children. So sabi ko, introduce naman ng bill para may mga facilities all over the country na mayroong special children. Pag namatay ahead of these special children, yung mga parents or mga custodians, meron tayong paglalagaan ng kapatid.
True. Well, sir, wala naman talagang kukontra dyan sa mga mungkahin ninyo and that they're all very good. And yeah, that it would be great to see laws passed granting those benefits. But the question has always been, saan kukuha ng pondo? Lalo pat nanggagaling po tayo sa pandemya, tumaas ng gusto ang national debt at malaking hamon ngayon ang kabuhayan. I mean, you know, you have to factor in the source of the funding for all of these programs that you want to legislate.
Oh, alam nyo, sa totoo lang, yan sabi niya si Panelo, ang daming libre, mga pera ng gobyerno. Hindi po totoo yan. Maraming pera ng gobyerno ninanakaw lang. How will you prove that? Tingnan niyo yung mga plunder charges, corruption, ang dami natin pinakulong, ang daming pending, ang daming tinanggal si Presidente, from generals, sa military, sa police, sa mga USEC, pati members of the cabinet, ang dami niyang tinanggal. Ibig sabihin, maraming pera ninanakaw. Another thing. Alam niyo ba na before pandemic, kung magkano ang ating national budget? It's 3.2 trillion. Before the pandemic, when the economy was robust. Next year, halos 2 taon na tayong pandemic. Oh, tanungin kita, alam mo ba kung magkano ang ating national budget? 5.2 trillion. O akala ko ba, before the pandemic, 3-point-something trillion lang. Bakit nadagdagan tayo? Wala nga tayong pera supposed to be. Why? Simply because meron na naman talagang revenues na pumapasok kahit pandemic, like corporate tax, income tax, real estate tax, lahat ng passing tax, meron. Meron talaga tayong pera. Isa pa. Alam mo, if I'm not mistaken, 3 years ago, sabi ni Mr. Jokno ng Central Bank, when he was still a member of the cabinet, alam mo sabi niya sa mga members of the cabinet, yung mga line agencies, sabi niya, mga colleagues, alam niyo, yung budget natin every year, kayo, yung mga department ninyo, ang dami kayong pera, pero hindi niya naman ginagastos hanggang 65-70% lang, kaya bumabalik yung pera sa treasury. Kung madali sabi, marami tayong pera, either ninanakaw or hindi nagagastos, bumabalik lang. So we have all the money in the world. Hindi lang napupunta sa dapat paglaanan.
Sir, last na lang, Pabol. Sabi po ni Lito Banayo dito sa The Chiefs the other night, tansya lang niya, mukhang magwi-withdraw daw si Presidente Duterte siguro from the Senate run because hindi daw siya legislator. Yan ang pagkakakilala nila sa kanya. Ano po masasabi niyo dyan?
Hindi. Wala naman siya sinasabi na mag-withdraw siya. At yung argument na yun, malabo naman yan. Una-una, he's a lawyer. dapat hindi ba, miyembro ng Kongreso. Since
But he's
it's
more an
legislation,
executive daw. He's
tungkol
more an
sa batas.
executive than a
Yun din.
legislator.
Pero dahil ang training niya lawyer, tama-tama yung maging member ka ng Kongreso. Nasa tao naman yun kung gusto mo. Pero yun haka-haka lang yun sa party niya, speculation lang. Let's wait for the president. If he, as speculated by him, he would withdraw. Wala naman siya sinasabi.
Okay, sir. Sir, abangan namin yung i-announce ng Pangulo na kanyang i-endorse na kandidato. Kailangan mo ba? Anong timetable daw? Will it be this week, next week? Ano pong pagkakasabi?
Wala naman siya sinabi kasi sabi niya matagal pa naman ng eleksyon.
So naman, kailangan mo sumpunta ng balota.
6 months to go pa naman.
Hindi, pag na-imprenta na yung mga balota, paano?
Kaya nga, paano yun? Kailangan isama sa balot.
Hindi pwedeng isulat lang po sa balota yung pangalan.
Kailangan isama
Pag hindi siya nag-officially withdraw, masasama pangalan niya sa balota.
Oo, yun ang sabi ng COMELEC Pag hindi nag-withdraw si Senator Bongo, his name will be in the ballot.
Oo nga. O hindi nasa balota. Kung ayaw niya namang makampanya, o hindi kayo boboto. Or
Sabi niyo may substitute. Paano yun?
Kung magkaroon nga ng substitution. Depende nga Kasi to move the COMELEC from doing what I said it could do, then the party affected must file a petition.
A petition, yes.
Di ba? Kung wala naman mag-file, di wala. Ganun yun Ngayon, pag halimbawa, hindi nag-withdraw si Senator Bongo at nandun pa rin ang pangalan niya, yung mga ayaw dun sa mga declared candidates, siya ang bubutuan.
Gulo nun.
Di ba? Kung baga, salit na mag-abstain ka, dahil ayaw mo yung 5 kandidato, ilalagay mo na ng Bongo. Kahit na naging bonggan na siya.
Kaya nga, baka
Gone with the wind.
Okay.
Ano naman yan?
Former Presidential Legal Counsel.
Sinabi ko nga sa kanya, sabi ko, Senator Bongo, pinalit na ko ng pangalan mo, ginawa ko ng bonggan. Tawa siya ng tawa.
Okay, former Presidential Legal Counsel Salvador Panelo, tumatakbo po sa pagkasenador. Maraming salamat po for joining us tonight.
Thank you so much for the invite. Salamat po sa inyong tatlo.
Thank you po.
Salamat.
That'll be all for this edition of The Chiefs. We hope the discussion will keep the conversation going. Now, before we go, a reminder to our viewers, mask on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines. I'm Edlin Gao.
I'm Ami Paminton of the Philippine Star.
I'm Lucy Cruz Valdez of News 5, and we are One News.